Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Which New York team has the best shot to win a World Series? Their superstars disagree, of course. Also, the Big Ten basketball race getting awfully crowded, and the Bengals need to make a decision on Tee Higgins right now.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Juan Soto believes that he's got a better chance to win with the Mets now than he did with the Yankees. Aaron Judge and Locked On Yankees host Stacey Getsoulias disagree.
Were you surprised by Juan's decision and his apparent conclusion that he had a better chance to win with the Mets than the Yankees?
You know, that's his opinion. He can say what he wants. I definitely disagree with him, but I wasn't too surprised by it. You know, I think that's where he wanted to be. I think that's where it was best for him and his family, and you got a pretty nice deal over there. So I think you can't say no to that. But I'm happy for him. You know, he got a good deal. He's going to be in a great spot. It's going to be great having him in town. We're going to be battling back and forth for quite a few years. So I'm definitely happy for him.
Maybe the rivalry never left, but even if it didn't, it is so back. Aaron Judge taking some issue with Juan Soto and his decision to join the New York Mets because the Mets offered a better chance to win. They also offered a lot of zeros. I don't know if you knew that. Stacey Getsoulias from Locked On Yankees joins me now. And Stacey, you saw the comments from Aaron Judge. What do you make of this beef, and who do you think? Let's start here. Who do you think is right about who has the best chance over the next 15 years to win?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be biased and say the Yankees have the better chance, because as we've seen in history, let's just say the Mets haven't won anything since I was 12. I just turned 50 in August. It's a long time. And I know everyone's seeing Steve Cohen as the savior. He came in, he stole Juan Soto because he had the most money to get Juan Soto. And just because a guy is a really big fan of a team and has billions of dollars to spend doesn't mean that the team is going to make the right decisions with those billions of dollars that they have to spend.
We've certainly seen teams spend before and not have success, not least of which the Yankees. We've seen the Yankees do that in the past.
Many times, yes.
It's not just that, though. Dodgers pitcher Joe Kelly said that the Dodgers anticipated defensive mistakes by the Yankees. So now the Yankees taking shrapnel on all sides here. And Judge did what he's supposed to do. He did the diplomatic thing and said, look, if you don't want to be criticized, play better. But from your perspective, when you hear, hey, in a World Series, the other team is expecting us to make mistakes, how do you react to that?
Well, if I recall, Joe Kelly didn't even play. So I don't know what he's even talking about, because most of the guys who were trashing the Yankees after the World Series were people who didn't play in the World Series or who barely played in the World Series. You didn't hear this stuff from Freddie Freeman. You didn't hear it from Mookie Betts. You didn't hear it from Shohei Ohtani. You heard it from scrubs. So the Yankees can be insulted by certain guys saying things about them, but if it's not a Mookie Betts or a Freddie Freeman, who cares?
How do you think what happened at the end of the season, falling short of the goal, will motivate this team? Or is this just, it's the Yankees, every year they should feel this way?
It could be both things at once, because they were motivated after 23 not making the playoffs, and then they make it to the World Series. And I think that some of the guys who are there from last year have a bit of a fire in them because they were embarrassed on the international stage in that fifth inning. It was one of the worst things I've ever watched in my 40 plus years of watching Yankees baseball. And I think and hope that the guys who remain from the 24 squad have that fire under their rear ends, because teams in the past, the 1995 team losing the way they did in 1990 against Seattle in 1995, they were fired up for 96 and they ended up winning the World Series. Same thing in 97. They lose to Cleveland in the division series in a bad way. They come back in 98, win 114 games. So I'm hoping that there's some sort of fire under these guys' butts, so to speak, because I know I was fired up after that horrible showing in the World Series, and I would hope that the guys who were part of that horrible showing will feel like they need to prove a point in 2025.
Not off to the best start on the injury front here for the Yankees. Giancarlo Stanton hasn't swung a bat in about a month, and there are questions now about whether or not he's going to be ready for opening day because of tendinitis in both elbows. Not great. What is your level of concern right now? Because Stanton is a core necessary piece to this team trying to win a World Series.
Yeah, this would be his first opening day that he'd miss in his entire career. Because the narrative that is that he gets injured all the time. Fair, but it's usually, June, July when he starts to get injured. He's never missed an opening day. And apparently he played with this through last season. So even with feeling tendinitis in both elbows, he still carried Aaron Judge through the playoffs by hitting all those home runs. So hopefully he'll get back. Luckily, he's the DH. They don't have to worry about him also playing a position, although it's pretty important to have healthy elbows when you swing a bat as hard as Giancarlo Stanton does.
You can stay up to date on the New York Yankees by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Yankees on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the SEC isn't the only conference making waves in men's college basketball. Before we get to that, Mike Trout is making a position change. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, how about you combine those live bets into a same-game parlay? I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps me in the moment. Every exciting bounce of the ball, every late game rally, every clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use. And when you get paid, and when you win, you get paid instantly. You get paid. You get paid. As we draw closer to the NCAA tournament, now's a great time to take a look at the Final Four odds. Auburn and Duke lead the way, -150 and -115. My goodness. Maybe a more intriguing play. The Terrapins of Maryland at 10-1. Analytics love the Terps, as well as the Kentucky Wildcats, who sit at 8-1 to make the Final Four. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Angels outfielder Mike Trout is officially changing positions. Trout spent the first 14 seasons of his Major League Baseball career in center field before announcing yesterday that he would be moving to right field full-time. The three-time MVP is looking to preserve his body as best he can following a string of injuries that have taken him off the field too much for his liking over the last 4 years. The United States faced off against Sweden in the Four Nationals round robin last night and will have a rematch with Canada for the Cup final on Thursday.
Hi, this is Rachel Donner from Locked On NHL and Locked On Flyers coming from the Four Nations tournament here in Boston. And Canada just defeated Finland 5-3. It seemed like it was all Canada up front, but towards the end of the game, Finland absolutely made a game of it. And I think the key takeaway on that is that there was a lot of criticism about Jordan Bennington being the choice in net for Canada. And I don't think the ending of this game changed that narrative in any way, shape, or form. So I think Canada's going to stick with Bennington because that's what they've been doing. But beyond that, I think that is going to be hanging over Team Canada as they officially advance to the final against Team USA coming up. Nathan McKinnon with 2 goals in this game. He had a really solid game, as did Sidney Crosby. And for more, I'll be back on Thursday for the final.
The NBA All-Star Game concluded to mixed responses. The weekend did include a new tournament-style format with 4 teams instead of 2, and nobody really seemed to like it. Not even the players. Atlanta Hawks guard Trae Young sounded off after the event saying he didn't like it at all, citing too many breaks in the action and a lack of competitiveness. It should be noted that each game lasted about 15 minutes with a collective 80 minutes of ads and extra performance around them. Not a great look. The SEC isn't the only conference that can play a little hoop. There are 5 Big Ten teams in the top 20. Michigan sits atop the rankings and the conference right now. Wisconsin just had the most efficient road win in modern college basketball. A remarkable performance we talked about on yesterday's Locked On Sports Today. Craig Sheeman from Locked On Big Ten joins me now. And Craig, we also had Tom Izzo passing Bob Knight for Big Ten wins. For his troubles, he gets to go face the Purdue Boilermakers, who are probably pretty pissed off after that Wisconsin game. How do you handicap this conference as we head down the stretch? As I mentioned, 5 teams in the top 20, but 11, 12, 13, 14, all in a row, Big Ten teams.
Well, I'm glad to hear somebody other than me reference the Big Ten. I thought basketball was all about the SEC. That's a basketball conference now. I mean, we look at their top 10, 11 teams and their little rankings next to them. It's ridiculous. So obviously they will flood Selection Sunday, and now the Big Ten just needs to see how many they get in, what that number is, if it's 8 teams or I can't even hazard a guess. We still have a couple weeks of basketball to go. But you're right. It was fun watching Izzo kind of sputtered going after that Bob Knight mark. He was, I think, 18-2 and then lost 3 out of 4. Couldn't even get it against Indiana, which would have been poetic. But he finally did get it against Illinois, and you're right, taking on a Purdue Boilermaker team that is pretty solid, but they've had a couple of trip ups lately. The Boilermakers have.
I mentioned that Michigan was at the top of the conference. The Badgers are actually at the top of the rankings coming off that win against Purdue. They are 11. Michigan is 12. I saw some Wolverine fans had some thoughts about that one. Do you think the rankings powers that be have it right now? Wisconsin at 11, Michigan at 12, Purdue at 13, Michigan State at 14. Is that how you'd rank the teams right now?
I'd like to see some Big Ten action, have some single-digit numbers next to them. That would be what I'm used to. It's like, we got all these ranked teams, and they're like middle of the pack when you look at the overall ranking. Again, hats off to the SEC for taking up all the spots. But it's jumbled. It's the races to the finish here. I think Dusty May has done a wonderful job at Michigan this year in his first year. I'm an Indiana grad. There's still people there that think we're going to steal him away after 1 year because he's an Indiana grad. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think Michigan State and Purdue are teams. You look at Purdue and Trey Kaufman-Renn, I think is one of the best basketball players in the country. He just fills up a stat sheet each and every night. Wisconsin, John Tonje has a knack for like getting hot in second halves of games. So, those 4 teams right there are spectacular. I don't know what to do with Maryland yet. UCLA is hot right now overall. Ever since Mick Cronin called his team soft, they apparently took exception to that. And they're pretty good. So, we'll see. We're down the stretch, as they say.
Who is the team in this conference that you think is most likely to make an NCAA tournament run?
Probably Purdue. Again, as an Indiana guy, that pains me. I have a lot of respect for Matt Painter. We're just glad we don't have to look at 7'4" Zach Edey anymore. We don't have him, so I don't know that they get to a Final Four or anything. Maybe they get hot. They're a pretty well-rounded basketball team. Michigan's playing well. Like I said, Michigan State lost a heap of games chasing Bob Knight's record. Maybe they get it turned around. Maybe they peaked early. That's always a possibility. So Michigan and Purdue and Wisconsin are the 3 that I would keep an eye on, I think.
You mentioned, how that you'd like to see some single digit in front of the names as we get toward, the conference tournaments, the end of conference play. Is it possible, you think, that we get to Selection Sunday and whoever wins, if one of these top teams goes on a run, wins the conference tournament, that they could sneak into 2 seed, 1 seed range here?
Definitely 2 seed. I never know at the 1 seed. I'm pretty much, as of today, I'm thinking it's going to be 3 SEC.
How many SEC teams can they make 1 seeds, Craig?
I think it's going to be 3 SEC teams and Duke. That's what I think sitting here today.
Dang. That would be wild.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it really makes me mad. But I think that's a strong possibility right now.
Auburn, Florida, Alabama, Duke as your 4. That's your top 4 in the nation right now. So that would make some sense, I suppose. But wouldn't if you're the committee, don't you have to credit a team like Houston or someone else if they're going to win their conference versus these other teams that just aren't, even if they're in better conferences?
they might tweak it and move one of those teams that I mentioned and you mentioned to the 2 line in order to squeeze somebody else in there. They might do that. You never know. Every year's a different set of lack of predictability, for lack of a better phrase. So, but yeah, right now, if I'm making the seeds, I'm going 1, 2, 3 SEC and Duke, and everybody just gonna have to deal with it. They've been dominating all season long. They've dominated the rankings all season long. I wouldn't punish them. If the committee does, well, it'll give us something to talk about the next day and do podcasts about it, I guess.
You can stay up to date all year on the Big Ten by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Big Ten on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, it's decision time for the Bengals, and they got to make it soon on Tee Higgins. The Cincinnati Bengals have a massive offseason looming ahead. Could they be wasting the best of Joe Burrow if they mess this one up with one of the biggest free agency periods in franchise history? Locked On NFL host Tyler Rowland and Louis DiBiase discuss why making a decision on Tee Higgins now will help Cincinnati greatly in the long term.
Like you could have saved money by doing it earlier, but it's not just the value of like saving money in the cap. It's the clarity going forward.
Exactly.
Free agency is right around the corner, and the Bengals still need to pay Jamar Chase. They got Jermaine Pratt asking for a trade. Trey Hendrickson wanted a trade before last season started, and he put it in his back pocket to play that year and led the NFL in sacks. He's going to want his money. He's going to want some sort of long-term security and clarity as well. So for me, yes, the Bengals can tag Tee Higgins, and if they do it by the deadline at the beginning of March, then they can negotiate into the summer with him. So I'm not saying that, they need to negotiate with him like they won't get that opportunity, but it's about getting it done early so you can get that done, move forward to all the other major decisions that you probably need to have some clarity on before you get to one of the biggest free agency periods in franchise history where you feel like you're wasting the Joe Burrow era. So you need to get this Tee Higgins thing done and put to bed immediately because you have Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson and Jermaine Pratt, and they needed additions on defense anyways. Like, huge offseason for the Bengals. I think they're one of the most interesting teams, but this first domino with Tee Higgins needs to fall, and it needs to fall quick no matter what it is for clarity's sake so they know where to go the rest of the offseason.
James Rapine, our pal from Locked On Bengals, broke that the Bengals were expected to place the franchise tag on Tee Higgins. Subsequent reports said not only are the Bengals trying to keep Tee Higgins, they want to find a way to extend Trey Hendrickson and Jamar Chase in all this. A very expensive offseason, to be sure. What I am wondering is if that's the smart choice. If trying to make all of these pieces fit is the prudent path forward. This Bengals defense is a disaster right now. Trey Hendrickson is the best player on it, no doubt about it. But he is also going to be 31 this year. How many more years at a high level does he really have? You say your window is Joe Burrow, and as long as Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow is about to get very, very expensive. And he is expected to elevate the rest of the group around him. So if you're paying him to elevate everyone around him, why are you going to pay $40 million for Jamar Chase and $35 million for Tee Higgins? That seems counterintuitive. It seems like those things are in a way at odds with one another. I understand wanting to keep Trey Hendrickson. He's right now the only player on that defense worth a damn. But does it make team building sense to be paying $70 million to your receivers, $50 million to your quarterback, and you don't have a defense? And we already saw that's not going to cut it in the AFC. To me, my path forward, I'm paying Jamar Chase, I'm paying Tee Higgins, I'm paying Jamar Chase, I'm paying Joe Burrow. I'm seeing what I can do with Trey Hendrickson. And I am hopefully convincing the New England Patriots or some desperate team out there, the Jaguars, to come get Tee Higgins and pay us a boatload. I want the Devontae Adams deal. I want that first round pick. And you build it that way. Your quarterback is supposed to be the guy who raises the floor for everybody. So why are you paying the receivers all that money? I don't get that. And finally, Jair Alexander may have been an all-pro for the Green Bay Packers, but he also may have played his final down. ESPN reporting the Packers have expressed their frustration behind the scenes with Alexander's inability to be on the field and his inability to play through injury. And this is why this is here. Because when multiple sources, quote, express frustration behind the scenes, and that gets to a reporter that you may or may not be playing through injuries, and that maybe the team would like you to play through some more injuries, what they are essentially saying is, we don't think you are tough enough. And once that happens, it is over. Once this hits the airwaves, it's over. So come and get him. An all-pro corner, everybody needs one. Is someone going to be able to trade for him, or the Packers going to have to cut him? Someone could get a really good player. We'll see. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, can Luka Doncic and the Lakers keep things rolling against the lifeless Hornets? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.